Hello, everybody, and welcome to the DMD podcast. That's Dark Match Drive. With me today are Johnny and Jeremy. Just a three-person panel. I am Kieran, and we got some things to get into today. All right, let's talk about something different. Let's get into a totally different zone here and talk about Collision. I want to talk about the show Collision, how it started and how it's kind of going. I think we've talked to Jer a little bit about this. And I have some good takes and some bad takes. It's mostly positive. I'm enjoying the show so far, but I'd like to get into just like overall through 4 or 5 shows they've had so far. How's it going? And how likely is this to turn into Dynamite, or how likely is this to turn into Rampage? Because we know those are two different things for most people. I'm sure there's people who tune into Rampage and are just as excited as when Dynamite comes in, but in general, I think most people are way more excited to watch Dynamite than Rampage, if at all.
But they're not hyped for those naturally limitless matches?
No comment.
Yeah. And moving on. Jer, what do you think so far? I mean, you can talk about the roster. You can talk about the things that they're doing, the way they're doing promos, the fact that they're way more in-ring product. Just give us like a quick sort of recap or statement about what you like about the show.
I like the amount of in-ring content. There is, I mean, even this past week had two 15-plus minute matches. The previous weeks you'd get, the 6-man and 8-man were both half-an-hour matches. So, and there was a stat that came out that Juice Robinson has wrestled like 90 minutes in the first 3 or 4 episodes, I think. So, you're not missing match quality.
Which is great for everyone because he's
exactly. Yeah, I'm rock hard for Juice. So, just and the promos, they don't overdo it. It's very contained. We'll get a quick 60-second promo with Miro. We'll get a quick, it's very in and out because they're not trying to extend and do backstage angles, and it's, guys do the promos and then we're in the ring. Guys do a promo and we're in the ring. There's no filler on the show that really takes away from what the show is. It comes across as a wrestling show, and you'll get your CM Punk slightly extended promos and whatever, and that's fine.
A little bit more over, but
yeah, and
that's his thing.
Yeah, and that's fine. I mean, it's Punk. He's a draw. He's gonna do his promos and whatever.
There are people who are tuning in specifically for that. So
exactly right. They are big CM Punk fans, and they don't care about anything else. And so, I think it. So here's the problem with Collision, and it's not a bad thing for me, but I can see it being a bad thing for other people. I think Collision caters itself to a specific kind of wrestling fan. It is very different from Dynamite, even though it's the same company. It's structured differently. It has less segments. It has less talent to associate with. There's maybe 12 guys on that are actually on the show week to week, and that is a plus. But hey, you might not get to see Hobbs every week or Miro every week, and that's fine. But I think people have been trained to view wrestling TV a certain way, and WWE had their hand in creating that mindset. And I think Collision specifically is the antithesis to that mindset. And personally, I think it's great, and it's a tremendous weekly wrestling show where things logically lead into the next week. Things happen that make you want to see the following week. And they don't try to do too much with it. It's very simple, you know? And I think wrestling is simple and should be simple. And that's what Collision is, and that's why Collision works. And, apparently Fightful reported that Warner Brothers Discovery is not so much worried about the actual rating of the show, which is fair. It's a Saturday night. What are you going to do? They are concerned with the 18 to 24 or 18 to 34 demographic, sorry. As long as those numbers are good, based on the amount of that genre of watching TV on Saturday night, as long as they can get a high number out of that group, then they're happy. They don't care about the amount of actual people watching the show.
What you're saying is they need the demo god?
Exactly.
Exactly. So Jericho to Collision. That's all we need.
He's too worried about a hat.
He already said that he wanted to work with CM Punk, so I don't get why they don't have the demo god on there. Yes, I did hear that, and it makes sense. It is funny when you hear obviously message boards. You see, we're all there. We all see message boards. We all see where people are saying, "Oh, they dropped off this much," and other people are saying, "Oh, yeah, but they were fourth on cable that night." So, and that's all good. It's like it. You can have your opinion, but really the only opinion that's going to matter is whether or not it gets reported at the end of the quarter. They made this money. They didn't make that money. Warner Brothers is happy. Warner Brothers is not happy. In today's world of, like, hey, this movie failed, at the box office. And you're like, yeah, but it's a super hit on Netflix. And you're like, oh, so it doesn't matter? Like, 1+1 is just not 2 anymore. That's the weirdest thing. It's the weirdest thing when you take in these, these ratings and these box offices and viewerships and stuff like that, and you find out, hey, like it wasn't that great on TV, but it's been trending on TikTok like crazy, and you're like, is that good? Well, people still buy shirts. You're like, oh,
okay. Exactly. Like for the Monday,
TV.
Yeah, like the Monday Night Wars, you would get a segment that's like that pulls an 8 rating, which was fantastic back then, but absolutely nobody is doing an 8 rating unless it's a live sporting event these days. And another issue is there's so many, like you pointed out, there's so many different ways to consume content now. Like
it's crazy.
You can DVR and just watch the main event.
Yeah,
you can.
I do that stuff all the time. It's crazy.
Exactly.
But anyways, but we don't want to get too far into that because that's away from where we really want to get here. Johnny, what do you think? I think Jeremy touched on lots of the great points about Collision, and I agree with most of his points here. Give me your like top things that you're enjoying about it, and once again, if you have any knocks, if they're unless they are exactly word for word what Jer said, then let me know what you think about Collision so far.
I mean, I'm enjoying it, yet at the same time, to me, I do definitely have some negatives about it. And to me, it's that each episode feels almost like a cut and paste format. And that, to me, I don't enjoy that as much. When you just sort of change the players, but the segments still go the same. It's, opening promo, hype promo, opening video, promo, match. Hype video, promo, match. Like it's formulaic in that sense, and it doesn't do it for me as well when you can just change the people and still get the same thing. I do like that variety. And like Jer said, it is partially the conditioning of what you grew up watching, and our formative years were in the Crash TV era for us, as viewers. We were sort of talking about this off camera where we were talking about shorts and stuff like that being how we consume media now, and it Crash TV sort of conditioned us to that. where pro wrestling needed to be bang, 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 bang. You needed something new to be going every few minutes. And then we got into the 20-minute promo era, and that was boring as hell. Because, we'd grown up where in 20 minutes you'd have like 10 segments, and it's drastically different. And obviously I don't want to go back to Crash TV because that was too much. As like a 10, 12, 13 year old, sure, it was great because that was my attention span. Like 2 to 3 minute segments, and I'm happy. But now, I do like the 10-minute segments, but it feels like they're the same, and that's to me is a little detrimental. And I, I'm not anti-punk, but there's way too much punk on Collision. And this is the analogy that keeps coming back in my head. CM Punk is to Collision what Triple H was to 2003 Raw, and I don't like that. He's in the opening segment, he's in the closing segment, and you talk about him 4 times throughout the rest of the show. It's too much. And
it's kind of like another wrestler in 1998, brother.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's the point. Like, there's too much of that, and that's the one thing that Dynamite has always had going for it is that you might get 2 segments, and then the announcers sort of carry. Like the announcers can keep talking about it and keep the hype up in the background without taking away from what's going on in the ring. But when you've got 3 or 4 segments all coming back to this one angle, it gets sort of repetitive. And that's where it's at for me with Collision, that there's too much. And I get, you're setting the tone, you're setting the trend. We're 4 weeks into the show, so what it looks like today is probably not what it's going to look like come September. I get that. So it's not. I'm not writing off the show by any stretch of the imagination, but we need to get more guys on top, and that's the problem where they're only using one bona fide main eventer on the show right now, and that's the problem. You need
Yeah.
more main event level talent on this show, and you're making guys. And don't get me wrong, it's great seeing the House of Black feuding with Los Ingobernables. I'm loving that because it's a feud I wanted to see for a very long time. I'm happy seeing Scorpio Sky back on TV. I'm happy seeing Miro as a featured part of this show. I'm not taking away from all of the good things that this show has brought forward, allowing another subset of the roster to get TV time. It's just there's too much that is tying around this one program. And I think that sort of goes back to the first episode. Should not have been a 6-man tag. Because it tied in those guys to one storyline. Instead of
Yeah.
sort of being the culmination of a build-up building towards this 6-man where you can put everyone together that has programs, put them together in a 6-man, it sort of took away from that. And I understand it from the booking perspective. Tony was in a bad situation because there was really no other main event for that first show. He knew where he was going. He knew the FTR Bullet Club Gold program was coming. He knew that Punk and Joe were going to have their little thing in the tournament match. There really wasn't anywhere else he could have gone with that. So I think, and to me, it just sort of goes back to, well, what would, you keep saying, well, what would you do? How could you have made it better? I think I probably would have just started the Owen Hart tournament that week. And you main event with the Joe Punk tournament match in week 1. And it's great because
Yeah.
they still go
That
out there and
makes
have they still go out there and have a great match. You can still have those promos throughout. You can still build it up properly, and it doesn't hurt you going forward. So that if the main event this week was the 6-man tag, then I think it makes perfect sense. Obviously, this week you've got the tournament finals and what have you, but
Yeah.
if you're building towards that 6-man now as opposed to off the start, those stories aren't intertwined. And when you play them out, there's no references to the other things. Like, having Jay White building up this program for the tag title feud, which is really just a springboard to get to Punk, makes no sense. Because it doesn't flow properly for me when the end result is the singles program. And
It's hard. I do think one of the major problems that we're getting here is that we don't really know who a lot of these guys are setting up to be good guys or bad guys yet. It seems like they're like we know that Hobbs and Miro and Andrade are all being like heavily featured as guys, but are they good guys or bad guys, or are they kind of just in the middle guys? I mean, Hobbs, we're like, oh, he's a bad guy, and then we
then
just
last
saw
week
him
happens.
throw away QT now, and you're like, oh, is he going to be a good guy? Because do we have enough of those? I feel like they haven't made the lines very clear on that yet. And then yeah, like the most of the shows have been centered around uh, Bullet Club Gold fighting FTR and CM Punk, and um, I do agree there's too much Punk. I'm glad you said it because I've been a pretty bad CM Punk hater as of late. As of late, being most of his AEW time. Um, I agree. It does seem like one of his promos, one or two of the promos there were kind of like a live crowd, like a house show type of promo where he just came out and said stuff, and it was like, this wasn't. Did they just send him out there and say like, don't do whatever you want, whatever? Like, I get it. I get it.
Another thing I've got to say to that is sort of like, I talked about the detrimental booking. The worst thing they could have, I don't know if this is sort of Punk being Punk or if this is Tony, but the belt in a bag angle never should have happened because it ruins the entire tournament. The entire tournament is ruined with that one promo.
Why?
Yeah, I don't think so.
That just sets Punk up for something in the future.
Because you can't pin him.
Already.
You can't pin him.
Oh, you can beat him.
Oh yeah.
You can't. No, you can't. You can't beat
You
him.
can't pin him.
You're not going to end the tournament on a dusty finish. That's not. No.
Just ruined the
horrible.
whole Collision for me, Johnny. You ruined it all. I'm not gonna watch Saturdays no more. No,
sorry,
right,
folks, but Starks is not winning this tournament, and that's detrimental to him.
So he's been fooling us the whole time. It's actually the Owen belt that's in the bag. Thanks.
Don't say that.
I mean, if that's how it turns out to be, great. But like doing the whole I'm the uncrowned champion because I never got pinned, and whoever pins me gets the belt that's in the bag, which is the real belt, is completely detrimental unless you're walking right into a program with MJF. If he's coming back
to on Ricky.
If he's coming right back to TV to go right into a program with MJF, then fine. Because that makes sense. You can build up to that, I'm the real world champion, not you. You can build to that and be good. You can't do that when Punk's not in the world title program. Because it takes away from everything you're planning to do with him from that point forward. Because you can't pin him. It completely wastes that angle. Could they do that? Sure. I mean, would it improve Ricky Starks to beat Punk and win the tournament and get this? Sure, but that's not going to happen because it's not a pay-per-view. He's not getting pinned until it's a pay-per-view. Whether that's MJF that finally does it because we get the whole uncrowned champ versus real champ program, probably not. Because, I think that's probably the all-out main event at this point because that seems to make the most sense. It's just,
Bonnie, John, you are like the reverse Santa Claus. Instead of bringing us nice new stuff, you tell us why the stuff we already have is shit.
Well, I'm sorry, but somebody's got to deflate the bubble. And if it's going to be me, I'll happily do that. Because I've thought this since week one. You announce... You do this, and then you announce Punk in the tournament. It's like, why am I watching this tournament? Because he's not losing.
I don't think he should be in the tournament altogether.
Oh, he should not have been in the tournament at all.
It should be a young guy winning this tournament, I hope.
That was the whole purpose of the tournament.
I don't know. I feel like we could do a whole show on that, but for me, Collision's been really good. I do like how it's different, but oddly enough, I kind of don't like how it's different in a way. Here's the thing. So far, it's a lot of smash mouth wrestling. It's a lot of big guys, or it's guys, like FTR aren't specifically big guys, but they're smash mouth wrestlers. They hit hard. That's what Andrade is. That's what Hobbs is. That's what Miro is. Scorpio Sky's match was kind of that way too. He was just kind of laying things in and kind of a new Scorpio Sky we're getting. I mean, not totally different, but it looked like he was just kind of conforming to the Collision style of wrestling now, which seems to be a lot of, like hard-hitting slams and not a lot of high-flying or hardcore or comedy or, all those different things that you can pull in from wrestling. And the main thing I like about AEW is at any given moment, you're going to get one of those things. You're going to get like Moxley, pizza cuttering someone in the head. You're gonna get the high flying Young Bucks match where they dippy all over the place. It's great. I love that. You're gonna get like solid wrestling. You're gonna get Kenny Omega hour-long matches. You're gonna get Danielson wrestling clinics. I think from Collision, you're going to see a lot of hard-hitting wrestling, and you're going to see a CM Punk match. And I like. I feel like it's very single-minded, very, very tunnel. I have enjoyed every episode so far, though, so I can't really argue with it too much yet. But I feel like it's something that we'll have to divert from in the future. So that'll be up. That's our topic there for AEW. I will we'll get back into it. We'll watch a couple more episodes of Collision. We'll see how it goes.